President Trump took aim at Senator Dianne Feinstein at an Ohio rally over the weekend. The Democrat rocked by recent revelations her office had been infiltrated by a Chinese spy who worked for her for nearly 20 years.
And speaking of China, it's just come out that the Democratic leader and the leader of the Russian investigation, Dianne Feinstein, had a Chinese spy as her driver for 20 years. And she's leading the Russian investigation, if that's what you call it. How about leading? No, she's leading the Russian witch hunt. A Democrat-inspired witch hunt.
And we have breaking news for you tonight. The Daily Caller is now reporting the identity of Feinstein's so-called Chinese driver. It turns out he was quite a bit more than a driver. Joining us tonight, Daily Caller's investigative reporter, Luke Rosiak. Luke, great to have you with us. And this is remarkable. The identity first of the spy who worked, quote unquote, as Feinstein put it, as a driver for 20 years.
This is a guy named Russell Lowe, L-E-W-E. He's a Chinese American who was her office manager for 20 years, so he's not a low-level guy.
Did you say office manager?
He was office manager in San Francisco, so he was higher up. He was meeting with ambassadors. He was, attending high-profile events. He was not a gopher. He was not just a mere driver, as Feinstein characterized him.
Well, perhaps she mischaracterized or misremembered. That's quite a different matter. And as office manager, he would have access to all sorts of information, as well as the comings and goings of Dianne Feinstein, who served as the chair of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence for years and years.
Yeah, and as a driver, because that was part of his capacity, presumably, he was in a position to overhear pretty much more than anything.
Right.
And as you heard in Donald Trump's kind of clip, she basically shrugged about this when it came out. When the FBI told her that this guy was working with the Chinese government, she didn't tell anyone. She didn't even tell her own staff. She just let him retire. So when you look at that tweet, she says, oh, well, the Chinese were approaching my guy, but I made sure he didn't work here anymore. They weren't approaching him. They were working with him. And she let him, she phrases that carefully because she didn't even fire this guy. This guy retired with a pension. He is now working at what appears to me to be a propaganda outfit in San Francisco, pushing dirt on Japan. So this isn't a guy that was merely recruited by China. He's a sort of a player in these geopolitical warfare battles, sort of this militant Chinese guy who's professionally involved in this kind of thing. And he's out there actually continuing to make speeches where he is billed as a former aide to Dianne Feinstein. And that's what happens when you cover up things like that. The people get to go ride your coattails and continue to associate with you. He's not disgraced. He's still out there actually meeting. He met with a Congressman, Mike Honda, recently. He's still associating with these Washington types. He's still part of the political scene because Dianne Feinstein did not take swift action.
And his name again?
Russell Lowe, L-O-W-E.
It's amazing. Chinese American, still in San Francisco, and without belaboring the point, where in the world are our intelligence agencies? They are the ones who informed Feinstein of his that he had handlers, not just simply people with whom he had little conversations, had handlers from the Chinese government driving his efforts.
Right, and when you witness a cover-up like this, who knows what you can believe, but the limited information that we've heard is that they said, okay, he stole political information, but not national intelligence, so we're not going to prosecute him, which, by the way, of course you can prosecute. The FBI finds ways of prosecuting people when they want to. For one thing, you could presumably charge him with the Foreign Agent Registration Act, just like Manafort. But what the sense that I get is that Feinstein told them, hey, there's no need to prosecute this, let's just make it go away quietly, and the FBI was happy to do her bidding.
Well, it's almost presages the Comey struggles between gross negligence in the investigation of Hillary Clinton and landing on, instead of gross negligence, extreme carelessness, which did not mandate prosecution. He said. It turns out that that's a false, if you will, choice and not true at all. Look, let's go to Feinstein's tweet responding to the president, calling her out. This is Feinstein's response to the Trump tweets. The FBI told me, she acknowledges, told me 5 years ago it had concerns that China was seeking to recruit an administrative member of my California staff despite no access to sensitive information. I took those concerns seriously, learned the facts, and made sure the employee left my office immediately. Well, now that sounds absolutely casual and harmless. No threats, no secret, access to secret information. But again, it wasn't a driver either. It was her office manager.
Well, keep in mind the way that, she didn't express any outrage here. The cognitive dissonance is enough to make your head explode. I thought we cared about meddling. I thought we cared about national security and classified information. And when it happens to the Democrats, as it has time and time again, they kind of just take such a casual attitude. Remember, Feinstein was the one who, when the Intelligence Community Inspector General, Charles McCullough, who was an Obama appointee, he was kind of the one who actually found classified information on Hillary's secret email server. And he said that he was bullied by Dianne Feinstein until he dropped it, which is a pretty huge deal.
And another huge deal, she's not unacquainted with huge deals. Remember, it was Senator Feinstein as chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee when it was discovered that John Brennan's CIA had been surveilling the committee's servers. First, he denied it. So they not only spied on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which has oversight responsibility in addition to everything else. If that wasn't bad enough, they were in charge of oversight. First of all, he denied doing so, then had to admit he did. And then she said, well, we're not going to prosecute anybody, despite his actions as the head of the CIA in that agency surveilling. I mean, Feinstein has a record here. One wonders why anyone listened to her when they started talking about a special counsel, for crying out loud.
Right, and this is kind of what the Congress does. They would rather be compromised than embarrassed. And she just said, look how embarrassing this is. The Chinese must be laughing at us. And I think they are. I think the Chinese are laughing all the way to the bank when this guy is still out there in public life with no consequences.
Well, maybe this explains something else, Luke, that's worth pursuing, and that is maybe the Chinese had so much on her that she was incapable of giving up her access or in any way thwarting the many sources at the CIA that she had access to and who were sharing intelligence with her and her committee. This looks very dangerous and potentially extraordinarily explosive.
Yes, and look at how the FBI handled it. They merely told her what they had learned and allowed her to handle that. Contrast that to what they did with Donald Trump when they basically infiltrated the campaign instead of just going to him and saying, look, there may be problems with your staffers. We wanted to make you aware.